So one of the biggest things that people hold over the paleo diet's head is the fact that it removes things like grains, like dairy, like alcohol, and excess sugar from your diet. But I want to strongly encourage you to keep in mind that this diet gives you so much variety when it comes to the foods that you can eat. It's not going to pigeonhole you into eating the same 5, 6, 10, 12 meals every week over and over again. It gives you the freedom to make your diet as simple or as complex as you want to. If you've got a simple palate and you know what you like, you can simplify your meals and your meal planning. And if you have time to cook and you love to experiment with different things and check out new recipes, you've got tons of variety that you can use in your everyday diet. But getting back to some of the things that people don't like that much about paleo, I wanted to give you an idea of why they don't like things like grains, like excess sugars, like dairy and alcohol. So let's start with grains. So why is the paleo diet so opposed to the big grains, or the big three as I like to call them, wheat, rye, and barley? The research has shown us that there are some very interesting and chaotic things that happen inside of our body when we're digesting these particular nutrients or these particular segments of grains. There's an excellent interview that I've attached as a resource to this that you can go through and read yourself. I just wanted to break this down into smaller components that were a little bit easier to digest. So what is it about wheat, rye, and barley that is so tough on our digestive system? The first thing about them is that they're covered in an outer coating that serves as a defense mechanism. Now, over years, things evolve. We evolve to adapt to our environment, and foods evolve too so that they can better survive the environment that they're in. What grains have been able to do over time to avoid predation and people grounding them up, using them from their food, harvesting them, is they've developed an outer coating that's actually a defense system that kind of wrecks our digestive tract as it goes through it. So what does wheat do when it goes through our system? What does wheat, rye, or barley exactly do as it goes through the digestive process? So there's one major thing in most all grains that they have that make it really hard for us to digest, and those are lectins. One of those particular lectins that exist in most of these grains is WGA. WGA stands for wheat germ agglutinin, just in case you were curious to know. And the thing about wheat germ agglutinin, that particular lectin, when it goes through our system, it can't be completely digested. Think about something like corn. Have you ever noticed that corn comes out whole after you digest it? Well, there's a similar process that happens when you're digesting WGA. Your body can't break it down completely. So what else does WGA go through, since we can't break it down, when it moves through our stomach, our intestines, etc.? So WGA attaches to the villi and microvilli in our intestine and our stomach. Now, these are the small hairs of our stomach, if you will, that attach to certain nutrients and things that we're passing through our body so that it can absorb all the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients, the calories that we need to exist. When you've got this whole WGA floating through the intestine and floating through the stomach, and it can't be broken down by that villi and microvilli, it penetrates that wall. So it's creating small tears in our stomach lining and intestinal lining, essentially. And this opens us up to a whole world of problems when it comes to digestive issues. So when these almost fully intact lectins, WGA, pass through our system and they're almost whole, our body actually creates antibodies to fight them. We treat them like a foreign invader that we need to get out of our system. And what happens then is our antibodies go and attach to WGA and these other lectins that are passing through our system, and we eventually end up developing antibodies through these, wheat, rye, and barley byproducts that are moving through our system. So what does that mean for us exactly? So when we create those antibodies, we end up having autoimmune reactions and allergic reactions to these things, because that's kind of like when you're sick and you have a stuffy nose. That's your body fighting that sickness. So our body starts to treat lectin, WGA, wheat, rye, barley as a sickness that's passing through our system and harming us. So we start to develop allergies to this, and this is how a lot of people move into celiac disease and how people get gluten allergies. Some of that's genetic as well, but this is a way that we can develop celiacs and other autoimmune disorders as well. So how does this affect us in the long run? Well, since lectins like WGA are passing through our system almost whole, and they're wrecking that villi and microvilli that absorb nutrients, that absorb calories, that absorb things we need to exist, that affects our ability to effectively absorb nutrients. So we're not going to be able to pull everything that we need from the certain foods that we need to survive. And we need vitamins, we need nutrients, we need specific things to make sure that we can keep existing and functioning properly. The other scary part about this is that gluten is just the protein that's contained in wheat, rye, and barley. But when those antibodies attach to WGA and those other lectins, those proteins look very similar to other proteins we need for our body to continue to function properly. Proteins that are in eggs, proteins that are in lean meats, proteins that are in our healthy fats, and combination foods like eggs that are a healthy fat and a protein. So we begin to develop allergies too for things that normally wouldn't hurt our body, like beef, apples, things that would be really generic that you think our body would recognize normally. We've now developed antibodies against those because of the similarity in protein structure, that amino acid structure that proteins are made up of. We develop antibodies to fight not only the wheat, rye, and barley lectins in WGA, but also the things that are healthy for us and begin to have allergic reactions to the things we actually need that are healthier for our body, that are on this paleo-style diet. Another scary side effect for this is that these WGAs and these different kinds of lectins, they attach to the walls of our pancreas. So once again, our body tries to fight WGA, tries to fight these other lectins, and that ends up damaging our pancreas, which is our insulin producer for the body. If we can't produce insulin properly, we're going to start to have blood sugar issues, and that's the road that leads to type 1 diabetes. So think about that we have these whole chunks of lectins traveling through our system. They're wreaking havoc on our villi and microvilli in our stomach, that are wreaking havoc on our intestines, and now attaching themselves to our pancreas and causing us to have a worse insulin response to certain foods that we're eating that can ultimately lead to type 1 diabetes. That's kind of scary, isn't it?